Okay, this is literally third time lucky. As it says on the famous mug, keep calm and carry on. So let's just make sure that I am actually streaming this time, because last time I streamed, I had a black screen, a little circle indicating that we were hanging. And that's not really the way that I like to position this work. See, these are things that can happen to your remote workers and also to you as a remote manager too. So I'm not sure if I'm live. Yes, I am live.
It can happen to your remote workers.
Yes, and you can
and
hear
also,
me.
to you.
But you don't want to hear me twice. Okay, let's crack on. Thank you to those of you on LinkedIn, and for those of you on the Queen of Being Seen Facebook page, and to those of you on my YouTube channel who have been subscribing, liking, following. I guess that I should really introduce myself or reintroduce myself, because although it says there, I'm Jenny Kovacs, a visibility queen, also known as the Queen of Being Seen. In fact, since I started doing this in 2010, in the last few days, I've had a flurry of new people. So in the last 24 hours on LinkedIn alone, I've had another like 25, 28 people who have connected with me. So thank you. I've had new subscribers to my YouTube channel. So really, thank you. And for those of you that took my invitation to connect or like or follow, right here on the Queen of Being Seen page, thank you so much. It means a lot, because creating this content, researching the messages and putting out something that's going to feel great and be usable, easy to use for you, and things that you can watch back on the replay, and things that you find useful, because you tell me sometimes days after, sometimes weeks after, sometimes a few moments after, but you tell me how useful and beneficial this stuff is for you. And this is the reason why I'm the Queen of Being Seen, because I do this for you. I've been doing this since 2010. I'm passionate about the field of visibility. And the reason for this is because we're not really taught at school, we're not really taught at university, we're not really taught in, if you've studied to become a coach, or you have done some sort of other modality to learn even more of your craft and to get it out there. Because I think we're actually attracted to study things and learn things that we're actually very good at, and to build on that more. One of the things that doesn't often get taught is, how do you position your work? How do you position yourself? How do you stand out? And although a lot of people knock it, that's very evident from some of the private messages that you may receive online on social media. Some of the messages from people that you don't know, and they suddenly just send you a barrage of stuff, or have a look at my website, or like this, or they don't communicate at all with you for a few years and then send you a, hey, have a look at what I do, because we've been connected for a while. That's connection surface layer. So imagine what it feels like, and I get to thankfully do this a lot when I go into corporate settings. I go into businesses and organizations, and they get very excited about the fact that I'm going to be sharing visibility nuggets, golden nuggets, or juicy nuggets, as I like to refer to them as. And they get really excited that I'm going to share the 5 key pillars of my visibility vibe system, which after 14 years is finally trademarked. And they also get very excited about what they can do to put themselves out there, to raise their professional profile and to be more visible. Now, this is just one way you can do that. Have a look at some of the stuff that I share. And for those of you that have literally just joined me in the last 24 hours, what you might not know is that in February last year, February 2023, I committed as a promise to myself to go live, not video, go live, every single day consecutively for 365 days. I wanted to make this promise to myself because honestly, I wanted to find my edges. I wanted to find out what would make me uncomfortable. And every day when I speak to people just like you, whether they're at senior exec level within a big organization, a well-known organization, whether they're part of the senior leadership team, so they're a head of or something like that, or whether they are on the leadership team and they're aspiring to kind of strategically move the business in a new direction. I have over the years spoken to thousands and thousands of people. And one of the questions that come back, whether it's an association, whether it's a company, whether it's an organization, even for the business owners, whether you are a consultant or whether you are a founder of a company, so you've got a small team or an extensive team, and even for those of us who would class ourselves as one-man band businesses, yes, you might be the director of your own limited company. However, the buck stops with you. And what happens in all of these scenarios are we're often spinning plates. If you're a business owner or a founder, you are sometimes spinning the plate of marketing, sales, accountancy, bookkeeping, processes, disciplinary, HR. You're spinning so many plates and keeping your eye on the ball. Some of you have got people in to do it, yet you still spin plates. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then on the flip side of things, maybe you work for a company and you roll your sleeves up and you all get in there. You've come out of a meeting, you want to implement stuff, you want to be strategic. There's other people you need to speak to. So what happens when you're doing either of those things, but the people that you want to or need to speak to are remote from you? Maybe you go into an office a couple of times a week. Maybe as a business owner, and I saw a lot of business owners do this kind of at the back end of 2021, post-pandemic, where they would look for workspaces or places that they could go and work to get out of their home office, to get from behind the kitchen table. So what do you do when you're looking to be visible and you either work remotely or in a hybrid situation? Now, the reason that this topic sprang to my mind was because, just checking the time, because I was prompted to answer a question just this morning at the time of recording this on LinkedIn. And the question was around visual aids or visual technology to aid communication between remote workers. And, some of these prompts are generated by AI. So, poor Chat GPT and other AI tools which are being used haven't been alive since the pandemic. They're kind of finding their feet. My first thought, if I'm honest, was to say, well, this isn't my bag. It's about employee engagement. And I know people that are far better situated and suited to do it. At this point, I think it's only fair to shout out the team at ETS. I'll tag them in the comments below this video so that you can see who they are. They're really hot on employee engagement. They're really great at helping organizations to work with their talent, with their organizational teams, to make sure that they're not just tick boxing employee engagement. They have years, and I'm talking years of research from working with very big brands, some well known, some non-disclosed, some that you might not have heard of but may have interacted with. So not only have they got the data and kind of the science behind it, they've got a team of people that know how to elicit any issues, how to deliver any trainings on it, and how to consult with them. And one of the things that led me to it was that the lovely Ben Egan there from who's their head of marketing had answered a question. So I saw the question and I thought automatically, this is an ETS thing. Let me speak to one of the ETS team, and noticed that Ben had answered another question on there. And then I thought to myself, actually, I have been remote working for a long time, and I went back in the depths of my mind and realized I've been doing this since 2003. So even though I started my business in 2010, in 2003, I worked for a company within financial services, and part of what we did was we partnered with our clients. We partnered with the brokers. So because it was financial services, it was mostly brokers, and they were packaging up pieces of business to send to us. So what would often happen was they would be based England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales. A salesperson would predominantly go out and look after them. But we know in terms of the skill set, I guess, of a salesperson, they are hungry to have more business come in. They don't want to sit and talk about all of the, kind of nuances of a case unless they get a phone call or get asked. So what actually happened with this kind of partnership approach that this company used, it was financial services and sadly no more, but a great team of people, a great talent pool. What would often happen would be that sometimes we'd be situated in the office and sometimes we'd work from home, and other times we'd actually work from the client's office. Especially those that were giving us so much business, it was a lot easier to situate somebody in that office to, kind of navigate those, those cases and things like that and work. And I was thinking this morning, that was the very first time that I had ever I'd ever worked remotely, like intentionally remotely, been part of my job. So when the question was asking, what's the best tech to use? Honestly, I just thought, no. You're actually asking the wrong question, but that's okay. AI generated. And here's why. And there were many questions, other questions asked, but it was this specific one. A lot of companies, especially post-pandemic, have now got flexible working where people can come into the office a few times a week and essentially work from home or work from wherever they've got an internet connection. There are companies out there that have been doing this for years, and there are some that have only been doing this in the last 4 years. And they believe that in order for everything to run smoothly, that there's a specific kind of tech that has to be in place. And I actually think, yes, further down the line, but that's wrong. So there were 3 specific things that I wrote down in my answer that I want to share with you, because I think it will be helpful whether you are the person that works remotely, regardless of seniority. You could be the chief exec that works from home or someone else's home. You could be the apprentice or the graduate that's learning the ropes, learning the skills, and you work from home 100% of the time, some of the time, or sort of anywhere in between. Because here are these 3 things to really focus on if you or your teams want to be successful with remote working. So as I looked at this slight imposter syndrome and thought, this is not my jam, this is not my bag, I speak about visibility, and then saw the questions, I thought, actually, over the past few years, like even before 2010, I have been having the same recurring conversations. And some of those conversations didn't change after the pandemic. In the pandemic, I remember people feeling like they needed to be persuaded to do work and to do business online. It was completely new to them. Think of the events industry, think of the retail industry, think of the travel industry. The 3 industries that in my books got hit the hardest, okay? They all of a sudden were in this lockdown situation. They couldn't be face-to-face with people, and they had to either dream up new ways to be able to continue doing business, or that was the end of their business, and they had to get creative. And for many of them, it put them outside their comfort zone. So once everybody was allowed back into the office, many of these companies breathed a huge sigh of relief and went back in to the office. But these 3 fundamental things, before you even look at tech, your teams should be able to navigate remote or hybrid working regardless with these 3 things. And the 3 things I'm going to share, the first one is effective communication. The second one is around managing workloads. And then the third one is around leading teams. Okay, so the first one, effective communication. People might think, oh, well, I need to have a look at the best LMS system, which for those of you that work in HR and training and learning and development, you'll know it's a training system. No, not true. Some of you will think, well, what's the best way that we can instantly message each other? What's the best software? Oh, we might need to create our own software. No. In order to nail effective communication with a hybrid or remote team or a mixture of both, there are 3 things that your people need to master when it comes to communication. Okay, so thing 1 is the phone. They need to be able to navigate conversations on the phone. And I am constantly surprised by how many organisations I go into and how many people I coach privately who almost secretly whisper in my ear, I don't like having phone calls. It freaks me out. It weirds me out. The second thing that I often hear is around video. Now, if you're remote, hybrid or otherwise, there will be certain parts of your day where you'll jump on a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting or any other teleconferencing software that you've got. And before you even focus on the software, you've got to think about how you're communicating. You might be pitching some business for your company or your brand. You might be representing an organization or company or a number of different organizations. You might be an NED, non-executive director, and many of you will represent different companies at different times. And a lot of my NED clients think that the only way to do or host a meeting is to be in person. You can still host a very professional, very kind of strategic and also very successful meeting by using video or video conferencing. And then the next way that people often wonder about is messaging. And I will agree that in this stage of time, if you want the messaging and the communication, email isn't necessarily the best way to do it, because while somebody's away from their desk, maybe they're at a meeting or focusing and finishing a project or just trying to get their head down to get some work done, the expectation is that you're going to be asking them to keep checking on their email. It can be really distracting. I've worked personally with clients, and that is the way that they prefer to communicate. And you see, by the time you get to the email, if you've been in a meeting or something, you see where they've sent an email and then 5 minutes later sent another one, and then half an hour later sent another one, all in the time that you've been in a meeting. And often, interestingly enough, that final email will say, it's okay, I've sorted it out, meaning that they didn't necessarily need you or need somebody on your team in the first place. So the very basics of effective communication is make sure that your staff know how to conduct a conversation on the phone for whatever it is you need, whether it's pitching, customer services, leadership, appraisals, whatever it is. You need to make sure they can do that, because and don't be kind of embarrassed by this. A lot of organizations get this wrong. A lot of their staff don't know how to do it. They have a preferred method. So baseline, phone calls, video calls, and how they communicate and message each other, especially if it becomes urgent. So once they have got that as a foundation, then you can start looking at tech and how it's kind of, all works. And that is just, and I say just, not to minimize it, but that is then just tech training. This comes from somebody who has trained people in how to use SaaS, as, which is software as a service, from people like Salesforce.com, as well as many other different companies. So the next thing is managing workloads. Now, this one's an interesting one, because some senior leaders think the way to help their teams manage workload, whether they're senior or junior actually, is to micromanage them, is to keep asking them what they're up to. And the assumption that is often made with remote and hybrid working is that because somebody is working from home, the manager can't see them, the board can't see them, that they're maybe off playing golf or, out with their kids or playing or boozing or doing something, but not actually working. And it's interesting because for many of the people that I coach, one of their biggest fears is that their management team think that they're doing this, and they actually end up working probably 150% over what they should be, which means they don't get a work-life balance. So take care in the micromanaging. And I think, and this is a very simplistic way of looking at this, the reason why micromanaging happens is usually the person doing the micromanagement has got very low self-awareness. Now, I'm sorry if that's you, because you might be thinking, no, I'm a perfectionist. We get that. We get that you want things to be done in a certain way, but controlling how somebody else does it, breathing down their neck, not giving them space to grow or develop, is micromanaging, unfortunately. So if that's you, learning how to manage remote teams is very different to learning how to manage somebody in the office. And then you've got the different levels of seniority. I don't believe that there should be a hard and fast hierarchy. However, when you're able to lay out your expectations really clearly, which goes back to the first point, communicating effectively, what your expectations are really clearly on behalf of the business, your business or somebody else's, that's when the team will pick up what you're putting down, and then they'll be able to move forward and be really effective with that. Okay. There's so much more I could say. I could literally on each of these run 1 and 2 day workshops, and I have done actually, but I could go into so much detail. I won't on here in the interest of time. So then the third thing is this notion of leadership. And it's almost like metaphorically, people perceive leadership to be them dragging a horse or a donkey around behind them. And that's not actually necessary. The best leaders that I've ever worked with, the best leaders that I've ever observed, and the best leaders that my clients have ever spoken about are able to do two things. They're able to lead others, but first and foremost, they're able to lead themselves. And this is quite funny because I'm not going to mention companies or anything, but I look back in my life over some of the leaders and people that I reported into. And the best people that got the best out of me, the best out of the business, and the best out of themselves were those leaders that recognized my skill set. They recognized their own skill set. They were highly self-aware. They had the right measure of obtaining feedback from around them and not necessarily couching and looking for validation from everybody around them. They had a really great balance of that. And again, self-awareness is key. So not only were they great at leading others, but they were actually great at leading themselves. Sometimes elements of this is referred to as emotional intelligence. Self-awareness is an important part of this. Knowing your strengths is an important part of this. Knowing where you need development is another part of this. And for many of those leaders, these are the sorts of leaders that if the organisation isn't providing the CPD or the development that they need, they'll often go out and seek it for themselves. And in fact, I would say a high percentage of my clients who are employed, they realize that they're in a stuck place, or they realize that they've hit or bumped up against something. And some of them have attempted to have a conversation internally at work. Some of them have felt that it's not a safe conversation to have and have felt too vulnerable, and then looked outside for either executive coaching or mentoring. And for some of those people, obviously the ones that I know of, they've come to me and I've been able to help them navigate something. And here's why, if you are an HR director or work in HR, or you look after talent, or you're looking at how your teams market themselves and promote the business outside of the business, this is what I need you to hear. A high percentage of people that end up coming to me and my peers and looking for executive coaching have actually usually had enough. They want to leave. They want to get out of the environment because they feel frustrated. Sometimes they say things like, I love the work that I do. I love what the company stands for, but it's really frustrating that this happens or this isn't managed. So if you think about this, for you to be able to look after your talent pools in terms of return of investment, because they do really well for the company, they elevate the company's status, and they really position the company and raise the company's profile and the proposition's profile. They do that really, really well, versus you letting them walk out the door, all of the costs involved in when somebody has to be offboarded, all of the costs involved in having to recruit somebody new and find the right fit. And God forbid you recruit somebody, they jump through all of the hoops, they start working for the business, and then you realise they're not the right fit. They're completely not the right fit. And if you think that that's an expensive exercise of hiring somebody to come in and train or consult or work with your teams, try seeing when they walk out of the door. Even more so when they have a good relationship with your top clients and they take them with you. So it's a really important thing to do. So I'm just going to recap. You don't need tech from the get-go. Even if you're a company that's well established and has been going for decades, what you need to do is to make sure that everybody from junior to senior can communicate effectively and communicate in a way that is in alignment with their role. So you're not asking the post boy to stand up and give an organisational speak without any kind of training. If that's something that you want to do, then make sure they're trained to do it. They should be able to effectively and efficiently communicate on a phone, on a video, and in some sort of messaging service. And I would include email for this roundup on that. If not, go back to basics, get them some kind of communications stuff. I've done a lot of that over the years with customer services and sales teams. And they kind of walk into it thinking, what is this chick gonna teach us? And they actually come out pleasantly surprised. I see the feedback forms. Oh my gosh, I really wasn't looking forward to this training, but actually it was really great. And I feel 10 times more able to do ABC. So the second thing was managing workloads. If you or somebody you know within the business are micromanaging people, and you entrepreneurs, if you are hiring a team member and watching everything they do and going down that, I'm going to get them to do all of this work and then I'm not going to pay them because they're no good, it's likely that this is where you need to pay attention. So managing workloads is providing training and providing mentoring, coaching, or any kind of support that helps your best people and anyone else that is important and company facing to be able to manage their workloads. This means listening to staff that talk about feeling overwhelmed, talk about neurodiversity, talk about mental health issues, but also talk about frustrations of, I wish things were different around here. These people are doing the best that they can do for your organization, and you are likely doing the best that you can do for the organization. So managing workloads is more than just time management and piling a load of stuff on people and hoping that they get it done within your time frame, or pulling a timeline. That piece of work for next week, we need you to have done it tomorrow night. How do you think those people within that team are going to get that work done? They're going to end up negating their family or their responsibilities, not going out, not resting, staying up late, waking up early, feeling frustrated, pulling a sickie or anything else, or physically showing signs of stress. You know, they suddenly become very ill, they can't shake it, and that's stress on the body. And everyone thinks, oh, this person's always sick. And it could be, you know, something that you're doing. So this is really, really, really super important. And then the third thing, your ability to have complete self-awareness, to have that emotional intelligence so that you lead yourself and lead your team. It's not one or the other, it's both at the same time. They both need to work effectively. So although this has been a longer live on day 15, consider this a masterclass. Now, if you have watched this and thought somebody needs to see this, and I know what they're going to say, I don't have time to watch it, they can watch it on my YouTube channel. Just type in, go to YouTube and type in at Jenny Kovacs and you'll find me. Click on the cog and speed it up. If you can bear to listen to me speak even more quickly, get them to speed it up, get them to listen to it on their commute, get them to listen to it when they're stuck in a car journey, and get them to listen to it, because these things are really, really important. And quite often people are kind of offending some of these things, communication, workloads, leadership, and because they aren't at a level of self-awareness that they thought they are, they don't realize. I bet as I went through all of this, some of you were sitting there thinking, gosh, I used to work with somebody like that. I can name a few people who are like big offenders of some of those things. So that's it for today. Day 15, part of the 365 days of lives, and every day won't be as long as this. Some days are a few minutes, some days are longer, but all designed to have you be seen, you be heard and you be unapologetically visible. Why? Because your voice matters. Your voice matters. Bye for now.